All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Services Committee, March 5th, 2024. Public Services Committee. If you have a phone or cell phone, please mute it or turn it off. If you're online and you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Other than that,
Number 10, ordinance second reading, amending section 10.12.160, authority to impound illegally parked vehicles, and section 10.12.170, immobilization of chapter 10.12, administration and enforcement of Title 10, vehicles and traffic of the municipal code of the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming, modifying specified enforcement provisions regarding vehicle impoundment.
okay, we have a staff report.
Good afternoon, I'm Lieutenant Hickerson with the Cheyenne Police Department Support Services Division. What you have before you is significant alterations to our impound and towing ordinance. Within this, it provides updates of the scofflaw definition and the number of unpaid tickets needed to be added to the scofflaw list, which is 3. It was more vague before. The vehicles on the scofflaw list that are located in Cheyenne can be towed and impounded based on that vehicle or any other vehicle registered under the same person's name before it was tied to that vehicle specifically. That has been since altered to include other vehicles registered under that person's name. However, a loophole was if someone was on the scofflaw list and they took that particular vehicle and sold it, and then upon selling that registration changed, there was a possibility that any accrued fines they had would be eliminated. Now those fines will be attendant to that individual's name and any vehicles that are registered under that individual as well. The amendment will also allows for the immobilization of vehicles on the scofflaw list rather than having to do an immobilization initially. And that would be only if deemed appropriately. That would be for those situations where we've had individuals who've been on that scofflaw list before, and they've made attempts to work around it either by calling in a tow truck on their own to have it privately towed away from that location, where they have tried to drive the vehicle away when we use the barnacle system, and they're sitting outside the door of their vehicle, steering with one arm and trying to see where they're driving, or alternatively removing the tire that had a boot on it and swapping on a spare tire and then driving away with city property. This would allow us to, if deemed necessary, immediately tow instead of wait that 2 days for the impoundment to take place if a vehicle is immobilized. Excuse me. Additionally, it clarifies the various means with which the city can utilize to contact and notify those registered vehicle owners and inform them that their vehicle has been towed and impounded. That way, we're not holding those vehicles and accruing fines on that individual's behalf unnecessarily. With that in mind, I'm open for questions.
Any questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman. So, Lieutenant, where do we come up with the number of 3 for the unpaid tickets? Was that, I mean, haven't had exactly this type of a scofflaw list, but we've had impoundment previously.
Yes, sir.
Was that 3 tickets there previously, or was that written into this particular ordinance?
So that was my understanding, and speaking to Captain James, is that was written into this ordinance specifically based on recommendations from Walker Consulting, as well as the other municipalities that we consulted with regarding our overall parking process. Prior to that, if I can take a moment to find specifically where that is indicated. So that's 3 days. Before that, yeah, on it, under 10.12.170 on page 2, the lower portion, is that correct, John? So within that, it initially said that if it was consisting of vehicles that had default judgments as a result of unpaid parking tickets, so it was just ambiguous. With that in mind, it has since been requested that we change it to a specific number. That way it's more easily followable. Before it was quasi discretionary. Now it's, if you hit 3 That's clearly enough for you to understand that those tickets are being unpaid. And at that point, you qualify to be applied to the scofflaw list.
Thank you.
Any further questions from committee?
Mr.
Rennie.
Mr. Chairman. I I have two questions. First of all, do we have a definition of vehicles? Because and Mr. Brody can maybe answer it, but do we? I assume a trailer is considered a vehicle. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that would be correct. Within our state statute, which we adopt for much of our municipal code, anything that has an on-road axle system and is mobile, therefore ethereal in its presence would qualify as a vehicle.
All right, I've just noticed up on Story Boulevard, there's a trailer that's had a boot on it for a couple weeks and
Okay,
so with this change, we can now just impound that and haul it off.
yes, rather than, if it's deemed necessary, rather than letting it sit for that long, we can simply tow it. I know one of the hangups we consistently have is the abandoned vehicle lot. And a lot of times we end up being at a standstill to try to
Right,
wait for openings on that.
I understand. Yeah, that's been explained to us in the past.
Certainly.
One other question, I just want to make sure I understand it. So you said that if somebody's on the scofflaw list, any vehicle of theirs can be impounded. So for example, let's say I get tickets all over town on my Toyota, so then I drive my truck and I get a ticket on that. If I come up on the scofflaw list, then at that point you can impound the truck, even though it's the first violation for it.
Chairman through, yes, Dr. Rennie. So what this basically breaks down to is if you acquire, say, $2,000 worth of fines on one vehicle, and you decide, well, I'm gonna put that baby away for a while, and you come out with your different vehicle, this maintains that accountability where
Okay.
it's the
So
registrant.
obviously it's the individual and not the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions or comments from any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add one minor thing, but I think it's important to note. If you go on to page 4 of the proposal under the new subsection H and subsection I. Under the current code as it's drafted, the administrative review that's available to citizens requires a hearing in front of the governing body. This was as I understand the history of trying to make our administrative process a little bit more streamlined and covered by administrative hearing officers rather than the governing body. This particular provision was an oversight during that effort. So the changes to the subsections that I just mentioned have also been modified to incorporate that administrative hearing officer as part of the administrative review of CPD actions. So I just wanted to raise that.
Anyone online? Anyone online have a hand up? How's that? Oh, Mr. Laborn.
I just heard the impound lot mentioned. Are we talking about the county impound lot or what we're using for the impound lot over there at the city yard?
Mr. Chairman, through you, my understanding is that we are trying to make a point to use the county lot whenever appropriate. For the city yard over at Old Happy Jack, that primarily would be for evidentiary tows or seized tows where we, as a law enforcement agency, intend to either get consent or pursue a search warrant for that hold. And that would be under a separate section within our policies.
Sure. So, I know that by statute, the county has to maintain that lot. I know that we talked about and I believe put away the fencing that we used at the hitching post for the purpose of expanding the lot. But I don't believe that expansion's ever taken place, has it?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that's correct. My understanding is that we are working on a perpetual delay to something that has already been approved and allocated funding for through the city. This is one of those challenges you sometimes have when you have multiple entities within the city and county working together. My last understanding of the delay on that was that they were trying to figure out how to install a surveillance camera system adequately before the expansion. I am more than happy to reach out to our fellow constituents within the Laramie County system to see where our progress point is and report back to you on that, Mr. Laborn.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Peter,
I just want to remind my colleagues that the county sure wants water and sewer out at Archer, so maybe we can work a deal later to get this done. Thank you.
okay. Okay, any further comments or questions from committee? Any public comment? Public comment? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion? So I have a motion to second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, with no further business before the Public Services Committee, we are adjourned.